Okay, I'll translate as we go, but you'll see the point of grammar that I want to pick up on. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem. You, all of you, are standing today. Now, atem is plural. Nitzavim kulchem. They're all plural words. Lefnei Hashem Elokechem, your God. The word your is plural. Roshechem, your heads. Shivtechem, your tribes. Ziknechem, your elders. V'shotrechem, and your officers. Kol Yisrael. Tabchem, your children. Sheichem, your wives. That's the end of section 1. Now, V'gercha, cha is singular. Not chem, but cha. In the middle of a sentence. Asher v'gercha b'chanecha, machanecha, not machanechem, but machanecha, your camps. Echetov etzecha, your wood. Your waters, all the U's are singular there. The avracha, to make you pass, avracha, singular. Riz Hashem Elokecha, Elokecha singular. It's Elokim Shelcha. Ovalaso, Sheshem Elokecha Chois Imcha, God is establishing with you today. Laman Hakim Oscha, Hayom Lo La'am, to establish you to this day to him as a people. He'll be for you, singular. A God. As he spoke to you, singular. Your fathers, your is singular. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, that's the end of section 2. Now back. Below itchem levadchem, and not only with you, plural, alone. So all of those, I'm establishing this covenant. He who is with us today, he was not with us today, is included in the covenant. So you have a sandwich. It's plural, singular, plural. So it would be nice to explain that. Why it's written that way. The English will give you no clue, because in the English, Y-O-U-R does double for both singular and plural. So the poor English reader doesn't get this at all. He's totally missing the whole point of the passage. Okay, now I want to introduce you to a philosophical idea, and we'll discuss that. We'll get that clear. I'll show you that the text is directly addressing this philosophical idea. 3,300 plus years ago, our ancestors made a covenant with the Creator of the universe. What has that got to do with me? What relevance does that have to me? Let's suppose that my father decided to work for AT&T. And he signed a contract, and he lived up to that contract till the end of his life. Would I have to work for AT&T? Surely not. He signed a contract. That contract bound him. I wouldn't be bound by his contract. What has the covenant that God made with the Jewish people 3,300 plus years ago got to do with me?
So who made the covenant with all of us? They were just the ones that actually...
Okay, so this, first of all, it's a good question. It's not a silly question. It's a very good question. And it depends upon how you look at what happened there. The truth is, God put the proposition before the people, and every last one of them said yes. But the question is, what's the significance of the yes? Is the yes, each one of us is pledging allegiance? If so, it has nothing to do with me. Or is it that God is making a covenant with a people, and a people can continue to exist even though its individual members die and are replaced by new members? That's what in some places is called a corporate entity. Let's say that General Motors signs a contract with Zaire to supply them with Jeeps for 25 years at a certain price. Now, you know what happens with public companies. First of all, the shares are traded on the stock market, and the CEO and other officers are replaced over time. Let's suppose that 18 years later, there isn't a single shareholder who was there 18 years before. Let's suppose that all the leadership of the company has been changed. Could they now say, well, we're not bound by that contract because we didn't sign the contract. We weren't there when the contract was made. No, because it's the same corporation. Corporation is a corporate entity. Surprise, surprise. There are other corporate entities as well. The United States and Mexico sign a treaty governing the operation of their mutual border. No, and let's say they signed this in 1906. No one can say today, this is 2015. Come on, that was 109 years ago. That has nothing to do with me, you know. Nobody who was alive then is alive today. Not the president, not the legislatures, none of us today. So it's just it's irrelevant. No, because the nation is the same nation. There's such a thing as making an agreement with a nation. There's something else where you make an agreement with an individual or even all the individuals of a nation that has nothing to do with the nation as a nation. So the crucial question is, when God made this covenant that's being referred to in this paragraph, was it a covenant with the individuals or a covenant with the nation? And now if you look at singular plural, I'm going to take you through it again. I'm going to skip one little section, and I'll come back and explain that later. But the basic structure of the piece is designed to address that question. Start at the end at the top. You, all of you. This refers to individuals. It's plural. You, as a community of a lot of people, is standing before God. Leaders and all the rest, your children, your wives, that's to the beginning of Pasuk Yud, verse 10. Now, that's the plural section. Now, just skip the end of Pasuk Yud. We'll come back and explain that. 11. To pass you into a covenant with Hashem. Here it's singular. So the verses are saying, you are a group of, let's say, 1,200,000 adults. I'm asking each one of you whether you agree. But don't make a mistake. The purpose of each one of you agreeing is to create a covenant with the people as a singular. That's why it switches the beginning of 11 to the singular. And it tells you to make a covenant with you, which Hashem is establishing with you today, 12, in order to establish you to Him as a people. It says that. So the whole point of talking to 1,200,000 individuals is in order to establish a covenant with the people as a singular thing. That makes it a singular corporate entity.
So then, by that logic, could we say V'gercha is singular because they're not part of the nation yet? He's not yet making a covenant with them. So Good try.
I think it's better than that. But it's a good try. It's a logical try. And then the verse ends, 13, back to plural, and not only with you individuals does this covenant apply, but it applies to future generations as well. That's saying to individuals, this is because this is made with a corporate entity called the people, future individuals are going to be bound by it as well. I mean, it's gold. The way it's written is how much gold. I thought of this many, many years ago, and I was hesitant to do anything with it because I said the variations between singular and plural are very common. And if I don't have a global explanation for all of them, maybe it's not right for me to use this explanation for this one. So I spoke to Rabbi Meiselman, I've mentioned many times, one of my teachers. He said, no, that's perfectly good. Explanation here is fine. It says what it says. That means what it means. Other places you can deal with it. You can deal with them. But in the meantime, it's perfectly good. Now, I think the switch for gercha means this. A ger, a convert, to what does he attach himself? He doesn't attach himself to any particular individuals. And he's not joining a club of individuals. He's attaching himself to the Jewish people. He's becoming a part of the Jewish people. And that's precisely what the text is saying. That's where the shift to the Jewish people as a singular people is made. And that's why the shift is appropriate to make there. Here I'm interested in the third verse, but I'll just read through the first two just to have the background. Will be when you come to the land, that Hashem is going to give you as an inheritance. You'll take possession of it, you'll inhabit it. You should bring for the first of all the fruits of the land which Hashem is giving you. Put it in a basket. Go to the place which Hashem will choose to dwell there. That's background. It's bringing the bikurim, the first fruits, to the temple. Ovasa el kohen, you shall come to the kohen. Asher yeh b'yamim imhem, who will be in those days. You should say to him, Higadati hayom l'Hashem Elokecha. I've declared this day to Hashem your God. Ki vasi el haaretz asher nishba Hashem Eloseinu lo aslo. I've come to the land which Hashem swore to our forefathers to give to us. I think verse 3 has in it two difficulties. First of all, there's a phrase in verse 3 that could be wholly erased and nothing will be lost. What phrase is that?
Well, I mean, you don't need to say your God at the end. It's kind of implied that Spirit is going to lay it on the altar of Hashem. But that's common language.
Well, yeah, I think your God faces a different problem.
No, why not my God? Why not
right? Why not our God?
Yeah.
Right? It has a content which seems to be out of place. But I mean, there's a phrase, and that's the other question that I want to raise. Okay.
That I've come to the land Hashem swore to our forefathers to give us.
No, I think there's a difference between saying, I don't know why he bothered to mention it, versus saying, if you erase the words, no content is lost. If you erase those words, that content is lost. You just don't know why one would bother stating something that's obvious. I mean, no content would be lost at all. The meaning of the whole remains exactly the same.
I declare today.
How about the Kohen who will be in those days? What other choice do you have? You can't go to a Kohen who's not in your days. So that's absolutely obvious. So that being the case, it doesn't say anything. Doesn't any qualifications, conditions, nothing. It's not even saying something that's obvious. It's saying something which has no extra content at all. This Sforno talks about this, and I'm going to elaborate a bit and maybe add in a few things he didn't say, but this is basically his idea. First of all, he points out that there's a parallel to that phrase, who will be in those days, in another verse. And that parallel, in a way, makes it worse because there's a reasonably good explanation for it in that other verse, but it doesn't seem that explanation would apply in this verse. So let me show you where that is. Page 1027. Verse 8. If a matter of judgment is hidden from you, between blood and blood, between verdict and verdict, plague and plague, matters of dispute in your cities, some question has arisen, there are various sides to the debate, and the authorities in your cities are divided. You shall rise up and ascend to the place that Hashem your God shall choose. You shall come to the Kohanim, the Levites, and the judge will be in those days. Kohanim, Levites, and the judge who will be in those days. And again, the critic says, oh yeah, and what choice did I have? Go to a judge who's not in my days? You shall inquire, and they will tell you the word of the judgment. You shall do according to the word they will tell you. So here the Talmud comments and says, even if the judge in your days is not equal to the judges of older days, prior days, and maybe you'll say, I know what real judges are, I know what the real quality is, and these fellows don't have it, and I'm not confident that if I go to them, I'm going to get a judgment that's genuine. So, the Torah is telling you, I know you're going to feel like that. I'm telling you, you have no right to protest. The fact that you have the judges in your days is not an accident. God arranged that the judges for your days should be the judges that are right for you. The famous phrase in the Talmud is Yiftach b'doro k'Shmuel b'doro. Yiftach was one of the judges, and Shmuel was one of the judges. The gap between Yiftach and Shmuel is enormous. Shmuel is compared to Moses and Aaron in certain respects. And Yiftach, well, he was a judge and an effective warrior, had certain shortcomings and weaknesses which showed up. And the Talmud says, Yiftach in his generation has full authority, just like Shmuel had in his authority. Now, of course, Yiftach came first and Shmuel came afterwards. But no one should say, if I know what a great judge was, and this guy doesn't compare, and therefore I don't have to accept his authority. No, that's not true. That's what this phrase will be in your days on 1027 says. But in 1069, it doesn't seem like that's an appropriate explanation. 1069, you're talking about bringing the fruits to the first fruits to the Kohen. What happens to those fruits? Well, he goes through a certain ceremony, a waving ceremony, and then he eats them. I don't know what qualifications you need. What, ballet training? So the waving will be fluid and graceful. We're not talking about something which seems to require special qualities, special abilities. So it's not obvious how to make the phrase on 1069, the Kohen will be in your days, give a content similar to what it says on 1027 about the judge. Yeah.
But it says on 1027, it says you shall come to the Kohanim, the Levites, right? Like as if that's one specific thing, but it doesn't mention the Levites here. So maybe it could be coming to tell you that Kohanim don't have to come from that tribe particularly, or I don't. It seems to be one says Kohanim and Levites. This one just says Kohanim.
Well, I'm not quite sure about the implication. The Kohanim are identified as the descendants of Aaron, and Aaron is a Levite. So there's really no choice that they won't come from the tribe of Levi.
Well, then why say Kohanim, the Levites over there?
Because what's being referred to over there is more general, and it's not restricted to Kohanim. Not restricted to Kohanim. Here it's restricted to Kohanim.
Kohanim by definition are from the Levites, then you don't have to mention the Levites. And you don't.
No, if you don't mention the Levites, then you will say it's Kohanim and only Kohanim. And the rest of the Levites are excluded.
Kohanim and the judges?
If you say the Kohanim and the judges, there will be no preference for Levites. The truth is you can go to any judge. The reason the Torah gives precedence over there is because Kohanim are supported by the population. Levites are supported by the population. And they have opportunities to study Torah that are more extensive. So they are the first choice for leaders, the first choice for scholars, and it's not restricted to them. That's why it says that over there. I think, the Sforno says that on 1069 it has the same content as 1027. You just need a little bit of background to explain it. And it's tied to the other question that was raised. The other question is when the farmer brings his first fruits, he makes a declaration to the Kohen and he says to the Kohen, I brought this before Hashem, your God. And our question was, why would he say your God, not our God? Why would he limit it to... We have a phrase that we're very familiar with. We call God, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. Those are the only three people in the history of the world whose names were borrowed for a designation of God. God is never called God of Moses, God of Aaron, God of David, God of Solomon, God of Shmuel.
Close though, right?
No, sorry?
David got close, he just failed the test, right?
Oh, so that's what I'm going to say. There's a Midrash. Midrash says that King David said to God, you're known as God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. I want you to be known as God of David. So God says to David, well, I tested the patriarchs and they passed the test. So David said, test me too. So God said, okay. Gave him a test and he failed across the board. See, God says.
Ishmael also had, or Asa, which one? He was one of them was supposed to be that fourth wheel too. Ishmael or Asa?
To be the fourth?
Yeah.
There was never a plan for four. Never, ever.
I heard that Ishmael had greater potential than, I think it was Asa had greater potential than Yaakov.
That doesn't mean there'd be four. Yeah, you want to.
There was supposed to be a fourth wheel,
That look, you maybe know a source that I don't know. I'm just telling you what I know. I've never heard such a thing, but it could be in the Kabbalah or other places that I'm not aware of. There's a lot of tradition I'm not aware of. At any rate, the question is, what's going on? What is this distinction of God being known as the God of so and so, not the God of somebody else? I think there's a very deep point here. I'm going to start with a point which is really brought up by the Pri Tzaddik, and then I'm filling in the deep background now. There are words in the Hebrew language which are used to describe God and man. Tzaddik, so-called righteous. Chosid, whatever that means exactly. Yashar, straight. There are words that are used to describe both God and man. We ought to be surprised about that. Hebrew is a language that describes things essentially as they really are. Hebrew is the language out of which the world was built. Other languages are conventional. Hebrew is not conventional. Hebrew describes things as they really are. Is it really possible that the creator of the universe, on the one hand, and a creature, a created thing, should share a quality? They should really have the same or enough, similar enough quality to deserve the same word in Hebrew? That ought to be something that's surprising. Now, if you raise the surprise, then you might remember that one of the 630 commandments is that we should cultivate those divine qualities. And the way the Talmud and the Midrash put it, they put it very, very strikingly. Mahu rachum, afator rachum. Just as he, or let me see if I can do it more literally. What is he? Merciful? You too be merciful. What is he? Gracious? You too be gracious. It's giving you a template that you should be like God. So, okay, now we have to bite the bullet. The tradition says this, but we should still be surprised. And yet, that's what it means in Genesis when it says that we were created b'tzelem Elokim, that we're created with the form of the divine. That means that, yes, we do share something essential with God. Whatever that ultimately comes to and how to cash it out, but that general idea is being expressed. That means that a human being can become God-like. Godly. Godly, I think, is short for godlike. Because you can actually have qualities, similar qualities to God's qualities. Now, this is a matter of degree. Some people have it more and some people have it less. There are 3 people in the history of the world whose lives embodied godlike qualities to such a depth, to such an extent and consistency, that God wanted to be known by their names. As if to say, I am God of Abraham. You want to know what I'm like? Go learn about Abraham. Because Abraham expressed me in the world. And Isaac and Jacob. I think you're getting the power of the idea. When this occurred to me, it is a wow idea. It's a big idea. And that is something which, to be a paradigm in that way, that's not given to everyone. And you can now understand why King David said, I want to be part of the club. I want God to be known King as God of David also. And God said to him, look, there's a certain consistency, a certain struggle, a certain challenge that you have to face. And he didn't face it. Now, that's an absolute distinction. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on the one hand, and everybody else on the other hand. Notice that Moses didn't make it. Moses didn't make it. We require a lot of analysis to understand why, what the difference is, but I'm just pointing it out. And David didn't make it. So now, there's also relative differences. Different people achieve this to a different degree. You do have times in the Tanakh when A will say to B, Hashem, your God, by which he's saying, you have it more than I do. You, for me, are a picture of something godly that I don't have, and I'm inspired by you. I learned from you something about how to be a godly person. That's what's indicated when A says to B, Hashem, your God. Now let's come back to our context. The farmer is going to come to the Kohen, and he's going to say to the Kohen, Hashem, your God. What is he saying? He's saying to the Kohen, you express a certain godliness that I don't have. I'm giving you that credit. Now, the very same sentiment that we had on 1027 about the judge can come marching back in. Okay, if it were the Chafetz Chaim, who was a Kohen, he was a gigantic scholar, a gigantic tzaddik.
Chafetz Chaim was a Kohen?
Sure, he was a Kohen. He set up a kollel for learning Kochim to prepare for the Beis Hamikdash. He wrote a commentary on the Sifri, which is the rabbinic comments on Korbanos. He wrote a comment on it called the Kutei Halachos because he was preparing for the Beis Hamikdash. He was a Kohen. That's how I said, listen, if I had to bring my first fruits to the Chafetz Chaim, how would we be overjoyed to say Hashem Elokecha, Hashem your God. But to Philip Cohen down the street, I can't trust that he's any better. So the Torah is telling you no. Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't leave us to accident, historical circumstance. Kodesh Baruch Hu set up the Kohanim for the generation, just like he set up the judges for the generation. And it's going to be right to say it. Now, I take it you're all with me. This I have said for many, many years now, decades, it occurred to me maybe about a year ago that there is one piece of direct confirmation for the idea of imitating God. You can use this as a quiz for black-hearted people who are scholars, but this that might not have occurred to them because it's fitting into my framework of ideas. Where is the first place in the Torah where we are told to do something to be similar to God?
Adam.
What was he told to do to be similar to God?
Well, he was told not to do something.
Yeah, but I'm talking about being told to do something. You know, God is like this, so you should be like that.
You shall be holy.
Say again?
You shall be holy.
That's not the first place. You're right. Good for you. It does say, Ki Kadoshani, because I am holy. Very good. But that's way off in Leviticus. That's the middle of the Torah, chapter 19.
It's in the first book?
But doesn't Adam prayed and rain came down?
But I'm talking about being told. God says to people, do this because that's what I do.
Noah procreate.
Chas v'sholom. What? Because I do this.
Shabbat.
Yeah, Shabbat. Good for you.
Oh.
What about Shabbat? It says you should stop doing malacha on Shabbos, just as God stopped doing malacha, stopped creating on Shabbos. When these ideas have been with me for decades, but once I was meditating on Shabbos, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's not obvious either. He stopped, so we should stop? Well, what's the so? Why should I pattern myself after the creator of the universe? That's not obvious. And here the Torah is telling you, ABC. He created the world for 6 days and stopped on the seventh day. You engage in physical activity for 6 days and stop on the seventh day just like he stopped. Okay, that's a just like. And the other Torah is telling us to do that. So I think this embodies, pretty obviously embodies a very great, great idea that there's no end to the development in the direction of sharing divine qualities. And that's what's going on here when you're speaking to the Kohen. Okay, now I'll tell you something else. These are things which I don't do so often because they're a little bit more specialized. Take a look on page.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Off topic about the meal. There's one part where God says about Shabbat. It says, I forgot the portion says that your slaves, your daughters, your sons, you have to keep Shabbat. And then in the part, that was Yitro, and then
That's right.
the second time you mentioned, I think Moses was mentioning it, or I'm not sure, or Beit Hanan. He mentions about an ox and donkey, and then all animals. And I couldn't find anyone that knows the answer to Yeshua.
Yeah, I have to look it up. I'm sure the commentaries talk about it, but I would have to look it up. But take a look at page 545. Beginning of the book of Leviticus. Now you can look at this either in the Hebrew or the English. Vayikra el Moshe vaydaber Hashem elav me'oho moed lemor. He called to Moses, and Hashem spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, boys and girls, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. You would never write anything like that. You would never write it that way. What's weird about it? Yeah.
Why is Kel very big, and why is the olive really small?
We'll come to the Aleph that's really small, but El is 2.
Okay.
That's just he called to Moses. It's not the name of God.
Why Hashem spoke to him from the tent?
Why in the tent?
No, it's much worse than
Hashem
that.
spoke to him from the tent, as if God was in the tent.
Okay, but the question I'm raising is much worse than that. You would never write a sentence like this.
Oh, it would say Hashem called to Moses and spoke to him.
Yeah, you would put the subject of the sentence in the middle. He called Moses. Who's that? Oh, I don't know. Let's keep reading. Oh, and Hashem spoke. Maybe he's somebody else. A called, the sentry called out, and then Hashem spoke. It's weird. Of course Hashem is the one. And if you read this as following on the end of the book of Exodus, so over there at the very end, God is mentioned, so it could be, but you're starting a new book, and you're going to put Hashem's name in there anyway. If you left Hashem's name out altogether, then you say, okay, it goes back to the previous sentence at the end of Exodus. But you're not doing that. You're putting Hashem's name in. Why put Hashem's name in the middle? So The Midrash comments here to tell you that every time Hashem spoke to Moses, there was a kriya before him, a calling out. Sorry?
Excuse me, that was what?
A kriya, a calling out before him, before he spoke. So it's to separate the Vayikra al Moshe, he called to Moses, from the speech. Otherwise, if it had said, Vayikra Hashem al Moshe Vayadaber, it would be Moses, ABC. But that's not what happened. What happened was there's a Moses and a response, and then Hashem communicates to him. The calling out to him is a prelude, and it's separate. That's what it meant to communicate. Actually, the Midrash says this is true everywhere. It's written here, but it's written here to explain to you that this is a pattern. It wasn't just happening here. Okay, if that's true, then we will have to ask ourselves, why would that be expressed here? If it's true everywhere, it could have been written elsewhere. Indeed, it could have been written the first time God spoke to Moses. And then maybe that would have been more inclusive. So I have to understand why it's written here. Now, you asked about the little aleph. The little aleph in Vayikra is explained many ways, but it's explained in one midrash the following way. What would happen if you erased the aleph? What word would you get? Yeah, if you pronounce it the same way, it could be Vayikra, or it could be Vayikar. Notice the vowels are not written in the Torah scroll, right? Just the letters. Vayikar. Is that a word that's used somewhere in the Torah? You seem to know a considerable amount. Do you remember that word anywhere? This is Bilam, the evil non-Jewish prophet. Verse 4. God happened upon Bilam. Look at Dalet, 6 lines down in the Hebrew, in the middle of the line, after 2 dots. Vayikar. Vayikar, kara in Hebrew means something that just happens, a happenstance, an accident. It means, when you use a verb like that in this context, what you mean to say is God did speak to him, but there's nothing essential demanding it. Vayikra, when you call out to someone, address him, invite him into a conversation, then there's something essential about it. Vayikar means it's accidental.
God speaking to someone is happenstance?
Vis-a-vis him. In other words, there's nothing in him that demands that God speak to him. He can be used as a tool, but there's nothing that demands it. Same thing is true with Lavan, if I'm not mistaken. Also, he was just used as a tool. I think so. Or Vayikra, it just appears, but not Vayikra. So, here's Moses taking dictation. And God says to Moses, okay, we're starting a new book. First verse, Vayikra el Moshe. Moses says to God, please don't write that. Don't write that. Don't single me out. Don't make it appear as if I'm special and I deserve the special relation with you. Write Vayikar. Just like you write about Bilam. Write Vayikar. Make it accidental. You used me as a tool, but don't put me on that pedestal. God says, don't tell me how to write my book. Well, Moses, as usual, is not satisfied, and he continues to protest. So God says to Moses, I'll compromise with you. I'll write a small aleph. Okay, what a big, all right, small. Now, I believe, this may be flippant on my part, but I believe that this shows you it doesn't pay to fight with God. Because what Moses was trying to achieve, God trumped him in spades. What was Moses trying to hide? Trying to hide his greatness. So God writes Vayikra, the aleph is there, but he writes a small aleph to indicate that in addition to being as great as he was also very humble. So he expresses even more greatness to Moses, right? So he said, don't fight with God, you're not going to win. Right? he outsmarts him and trumps him. Fine.
How many times is a letter small like that in the Torah?
There are many small letters. I don't know how many times in aleph, but there are many small letters in the Torah. And large letters. There are some that are larger than usual and some that are smaller than usual. The dalet of echad is larger than usual. Now, why is this here? What's going on? This is the beginning of the book that dictates sacrifices. Now let me tell you something that's very important. There's no word for sacrifices in Hebrew. The English word sacrifices is utterly foreign, distortion. Because sacrifice means I'm giving something up. I'm losing something. There's no word for that in Hebrew. The two words that are used in Hebrew for what you present in the temple are korban. Korban comes from a root which means to draw close. And mincha, which means a gift, but a gift doesn't stress that I'm losing something. It just means I'm giving something. Sacrifice in English means I've lost something. And that is utterly foreign to the Torah's point of view of what this performance involves. Now, Moses says, you're starting the book with the laws of how to draw close to you. Through whom would it be logical to dictate the laws of how to draw close to God? The person who's closest to God. He would be the best choice. Now you're going to write Vayikra, that you singled me out essentially for this purpose, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. And God says, watch, don't fight with me. And not only that, but here the emphasis of the small aleph is Moses' humility. That's the reason why he singled out to explain how to grow close to God, because that's the key to growing close to God. Key to growing close to God is humility, particularly. That's why they stress to the fact that Mount Sinai was the lowest of all the mountains. That Torah is like water, it flows downhill. It goes to the people who are humble. So God crafted into this sentence all of what he wanted to express vis-a-vis Moses, and it's encapsulated in the little aleph. And this is where we know that God called out to Moses before he spoke to him every time, because that's why he did call out to him. He called out to him because he was the ideal vehicle to communicate God's words to the people.